Hey everyone, welcome to r/maliciouscompliance, where people tend to get exactly what they deserve. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got some stories for you.
Impatient professor? We'll just flood your WhatsApp group. I rarely use Reddit, but for the first time today I was part of an act of malicious compliance. Nothing special, but we had a good laugh about it, so here it goes. Sorry if my English is not perfect, it's not my first language. I am a student in Italy. Right now we are all quarantined because of COVID-19, but universities are still holding lessons using Google Meet. We have been in contact with our professors during last week via email, WhatsApp, and stuff. And today at 9 a.m. we started our regular lessons as if class was in session. This morning, our main professor, the one holding the most important lesson of our course, sent an email around 10 a.m. telling us he'll be holding his lesson tomorrow. We already knew this because he had told us already multiple times in multiple emails, and in his message he wasn't asking for a reply. He sent this while the whole class was already connected with another professor and following her lesson, so we didn't reply right away. After an hour, he sent another outraged email asking why no one had replied to his super important message yet, considering we were all home with nothing to do. We were literally following another lesson. All of us. Cue the malicious compliance. 50 to 60 people replying, "Sorry, Professor, I was following blank lesson name. Got it, see you tomorrow." All at the same time in our WhatsApp group. After the first 30, he just replied, "Okay, I got it, you made your point." I told you it was nothing special, but we're easily entertained during this quarantine. Pretty mild, but enjoyable nonetheless. I like it when people finally see that they were kind of being a little pompous and a little pushy, maybe a little more than a little, but you get the idea. Maybe he'll get it now and ease up a little. Get the crickets you pay for. I work in a small local pet store where we sell crickets. We sell cricket cards. They're basically a card that has a given 250 crickets. These cards are $20 and you save quite a bit of money by using them. Customers would tell us how many crickets and what size, and we would go get them and scratch off the amount of crickets wanted. The bugs are bought in increments of 10, so someone couldn't get 15 crickets, but had to get 10 or 20. One day, I had a lady come in and ask for 20 large crickets. I ran and got them and handed the bag of crickets to her. She stares at the bag for a few seconds and almost immediately blows up, yelling about how I had tried to rip her off, giving her less crickets than she ordered, and all that. She said that she wanted to get exactly what she paid for. She wanted me to count them. Fine. I grabbed a pair of tongs and another bag and counted. She got 24 bugs. I apologized and took the extra 4 crickets back. She started yelling that she wanted a few extra crickets. I just looked at her and, trying my hardest to keep a straight face, told her, "You get exactly what you paid for." She turned a maroon color and stormed towards the door. She didn't know this, but we have 2 separate entrance and exit doors. She tried to exit the entrance door. I told her that the other door would let her out and to have a good day. I haven't seen her since. Crickets. Cards of crickets. Scraping them off. I don't understand how that works. I've seen them in tanks with, here in the US, in tanks with, the fibrous egg crates and things like that. You kind of scoop up a bunch and get roughly the number you asked for, and that's that. Do any of you guys have pets that eat crickets? Let me know in the comments down below. If you think you can find another job in this economy, go ahead and try. Challenge accepted. I've read a lot of people having issues with jobs and everything that's going on, and it reminds me of an act of malicious compliance that I perpetrated back in the last economic crisis of 2008-2009. I worked for a large online website in what we call the operations center. Large websites have many servers, not only in number but in type. A problem is sometimes simple, like this server, really just a computer, is broken. But sometimes it's complicated. A dozen small problems have happened throughout the system. Normally not an issue on their own, but together have become this perfect storm that screws the whole website and takes it down. These problems are complicated, and often the individual developers are not familiar enough with the system as a whole to figure it out quickly. This is where the Operations Center are tasked with the monitoring system as a whole and connecting the dots on these larger problems. Different companies may use many names like Service Operations Center, SOC, Network Operations Center, NOC, etc. But every large website has this sort of group that acts as the custodian of the interdependent connections of the individual servers. It can take a year to a year and a half of learning how a website works before you are even useful during an outage, and many years before you're an expert and have the confidence to lead a shift. We ran 24/7, 365, all from one office, in a major city. Half the people were on 4 10-hour shifts, others were on 3 12.5-hour shifts, with 5 extra hours every other week to make 80 hours every 2 weeks, covering the whole week with no on-call, as we were staffed 24/7, 365. No need to call anyone at home, there was always someone at the office. I had been there for years and was darn good at my job. I had done several years on third shift and was ready to be done with staying up all night and basically being a zombie on my time off. It's tough to switch from being awake all night to being awake all day twice a week. So a new manager, let's call him Kyle, was hired, and decided that he didn't like the fact we were only getting screwed on sleep. He wanted to screw us just a little harder and dry. So he pulls me into a meeting room one evening when basically everyone except my 2 team members had gone home, slide this paper over to me and starts telling me that the shifts have to be changed, and everyone has to work 5 days a week. And on top of that, now shift leaders have to be on call during the time period of their shift on their days off. Something about understanding common issues that happen during that time of day. On top of this, they were going to expect us to also do some kind of vaguely defined project work while we were on shift or something, which, with our workload, was absolutely ridiculous to expect. We weren't JS or Java developers anyway, which was what the site ran on, so it was asinine to expect us to work on the web application in our spare time. We were ops, and while some of us were good at scripting, this was just a terrible decision. There were already teams there that handled monitoring and build tooling for us to use. The turd cherry on top of this crap sandwich was that he was moving me back to third shift, and I'd be working Wednesday through Sunday, no weekend, and on call at night during my 2 days off. After all this was laid out to me, I looked at him and said, we'd be working every day of the year, no time to unplug or get away from work. I don't know why anyone would accept this plan as it's laid out. He responded with a smug grin on his face that I will never forget. Well, if you think you can find another job in this economy, you're welcome to try. I literally, not literally as figuratively, but actually literally, had to bite my tongue hard enough to bleed to stop myself from saying "challenge accepted" out loud. Instead, I slid the paper back at him and walked out of the meeting room without another word. The thing is that good sysadmins are tough to hire. We're loyal, we have excellent problem-solving skills, and we enjoy a challenge. So I kept my mouth shut, started working overnights, and meanwhile contacted everyone I knew about the predicament I was in. I got Kyle to pay for a certification that I'd always wanted, and meanwhile, I was complying with all the maliciousness I could come up with. I landed an interview with someone who'd managed our group right when I'd been hired. I showed them how I'd kept growing as a professional, getting certifications and regular promotions. I let slip that the only 2 days I'd be available for the interview were Mondays and Tuesdays because, well, they changed the schedule, and I'd have to keep my phone on as I'd be on call those 2 days. This led them to ask more questions about the changes there, and I have to admit, I wasn't all that averse to telling them how this new manager was changing things. I could absolutely see the disbelief on their face and enjoyed every, "What? That's not how you run things." This old manager was sympathetic, and so I had another job offer in hand within a month of the changes. I left a 2-week notice on Kyle's desk that said, "Despite the slightly stagnant economy, I have been offered another position. Effective in 2 weeks, I will no longer be able to continue my employment with company." The little jerk told me not to come back after 1 week. Didn't even try to schedule any knowledge transfer meetings where we share what we know when we leave, a common thing with technical employees. Cut off the nose to spite your face, I guess. Now, he didn't have anyone to cover for that third shift with any experience for months. Mistakes were made, website problems were way up on his watch, which was tracked by another team. He had no one else to blame but himself. He did tell me I was welcome to try. Epilogue. I was always getting stories from the people who left about dumb stuff that he'd said in large meetings, but eventually he crossed HR. He said something mildly inappropriate in a meeting, and someone went to HR and complained. He then went all in on his stupidity, and I crap you not here. God's honest truth, pulled that person into a meeting room alone and demanded to know why they went to HR. He told them stuff like, "You come to me first if you have a problem with me," and "We don't go above other people's heads around here." The person was shaken, and the other people in the operations center advised that they go straight back to HR with it. HR wasn't ready to believe it, and clandestinely called others to corroborate. Not only did they say it was totally true, but they all felt free to discuss even more inappropriate behavior they had seen. Kyle was escorted out with nothing but a box of his belongings that day. Do not pass go, do not collect unemployment. I don't know what happened to Kyle after that, but that was a bridge I was happy to burn, and dance and sing while it crumbled to ashes. And don't give up hope. This too shall pass. Businesses know this and will still be hiring for long term. It'll be tough, but you can do this. Do it. Interview. On video conferences, of course. Talk to old coworkers and managers. There are opportunities, even in times of crisis. Look for them. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky. Michael Scott. Too long didn't read. Manager screws everyone during the 2008-2009 financial crisis and says, "If you think you can get a job in this economy, you're welcome to try." I try, I do, I quit. Want me to keep my room's door open where it has acrylic paint? Well, duck your couch, Mom. Backstory. I used to live with my mom and little brother who had ADHD and was always getting into trouble. I have nice paintbrushes and acrylic paint that is very hard to get off of cloth. Okay, now on to the story. One day, my little 5-year-old brother was getting on my nerves, so I shut my door on him. My mom heard and came in saying, "We don't shut doors in this house." Me being fed up, decides to shut my door again, and what do you know? She yells at me again. So malicious compliance. I leave my door open and go to my grandma's house. And when I come back, my mom is covered in paint and our nice red couch has sea green all over it. Let's just say my mom let me shut my door and bought me new paints and brushes. Moral of the story: don't mess with a grumpy teen in her room. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up. And also, I fixed the format, and just so y'all know, I'm in a better place with my dad who makes better rules. Edit. This is for the few people blaming me and calling me entitled. She was abusive in other ways, and it took me threatening to hurt myself for the court to give me to my dad. Plus, the only time when I asked for stuff was for school or basic living. The paints were to entertain me. I can sort of see where OP is coming from. I get it. Things were getting on your nerves. I can also see where, maybe she was pushing a little bit because she didn't like the rules of the house and things like that. And it was kind of a perfect storm, ADHD brother, mom who's probably stressed, might be a little but, I'll bet OP played a little part in it too. I know I did when I was that age. What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments down below. Why my wife doesn't ask me to read her bedtime stories anymore. So I wake up very early in the morning, around 3 a.m., to go to work. Naturally, I spend a lot of my weekends catching up on all the sleep that I miss. One night, my wife woke me up about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, asking me to read her a bedtime story. Now, at first, I got really annoyed because I was sleeping like the dead before she shook me awake. But rather than get angry or say no, I just said, okay, and went to our library. I'm a big Warhammer 40k fan, with the Space Wolves, or the Route to anyone in the know, is my favorite Space Marine chapter. I decided to pull out Prospero Burns by Dan Abnett and read it to my wife. I got about 3 very gory, very descriptive pages in before she said, "I'm sorry, I will never wake you up again. Please stop reading." I said, "Great," and immediately went back to sleep. She hasn't asked me since. Edit 1. Holy crap, you guys. I went to bed and this exploded. Thank you so much. Edit 2. For the record, when this story happened, we were living together but not married. Now we have been married for the last 3 years and couldn't be happier. And I do still read to her, just not in the middle of the night. Edit 3. Guys, Jesus, I didn't expect this crappy post to get so many votes. Thank you. Do you read bedtime stories to your spouse? Let me know in the comments down below. Oh, I'll dig your trench for you, sir. No problem. I posted this in petty revenge and it was suggested you all may enjoy it too. A guy I served with was on an infantry exercise with this well-known total douche of an officer. No one liked this guy, for several good reasons, including that he had a complete little big man syndrome. He had been giving them grief the whole time. They really did not like this guy. Officers need to be able to lead the mission, but also look after their soldiers. A bad officer can make things pretty miserable. Now, the guy was pretty short, around 5'6" or so. But it's not a big deal as long as you do your job, which this guy also sucked at. Anyway, he had to go off to the O group, and he threw a shovel at one of his soldiers and said, "Dig my trench for me," and left. Okay, fine. The guy was a monster, about 6'5" or so, and he dug the trench. He dug one so deep that the other guys had to help him out when it was done. Late that night, the O group is done, and the little officer is on his way back. Everyone is on the defensive and being quiet and tactical, so he creeps up and asks where his trench is. They point out the glow sticks that are marking the spot. The guy carefully heads over and hops in. Whoosh! Gone. He can't yell for help since they are on the defensive and being quiet. He can't climb out very well, especially in the dark. He couldn't do anything except wait for morning, when they were allowed to stand down and the guys came to pull him out. Apparently he did a better job looking after his troops after that. I'm pretty sure this is where our fragging came from, boys and girls. Yeah, they might be the boss, but they need to learn how to be nice, because sometimes even if you're right, you're wrong.